Hello, this is a video tutorial for my latest mug rug that I've designed. It's similar to my original wavy line mug rug, although I've got the heart stipple background and the wavy line is much wavier. And also, instead of the satin stitch edging, we turn this inside out and we have the seam as such, the seam finish. I think it's a nice finish and makes a change. And because my wavy line mug rug has proved so popular, it's definitely my biggest seller, I thought why not create something very similar but with the differences to take into account. So I hope you like this one, and I shall now proceed to show you how we make it. The first thing I did was prepared my cutaway stabiliser. For this type of mug rug, because it's not a satin stitch edging where you need to get rid of the stabiliser, I use the cutaway. It's a mesh cutaway, and you have to prepare it first by steam ironing it. I also spritzed it with a bit of water, ironed it on the hottest setting, and it does pre-shrink it a tiny amount. That amount makes a big difference. If I didn't do that, next time I washed it, it would shrink a little bit, therefore causing the top fabrics and the embroidery to sort of pull in tight and pucker. So it's very important you always pre-shrink your cutaway mesh. Obviously the paper type cutaways you don't need to do that. And then I prepared my fabrics, and the fabric that I'm going to have on the top is this one. You have to do at least 5.5 by 7.5 inches, or if you really want to have the excess, do 6 by 8 inches, definitely to cover over the placement lines. And then I prepared my underside of piece of fabric, exactly the same as the top. However, I have used Heat and Bond fusible fleece on the reverse. You don't have to do this. I like to do it because it gives the mug rugs more stability. It just makes it a bit more padded. I prefer a more padded mug rug. Not everyone does, so if you don't want to do that, you can omit this and just carry on as normal. You can also, if you wish, use some Heat and Bond Light or Wonder Under, so that this will stick afterwards to this side of the piece as such when it's all finished. If you like to have the fabric all set solid. It's not something I concern myself with, so I don't do that. Then we've also got our warm and natural wadding that I use for the top. And then finally we've got our applique fabrics. I've got this larger piece for the letter, which in this case will be G for grandma. And then this is for the side where the name will go, which again is going to be grandma. The only thing I have done is, because this is a pale pink fabric, when you're on top of this fabric, you were able to see the print underneath. I mean, you still can slightly. However, it was really quite strong that you could really see it very clearly. So what I did was I got some broadcloth, white broadcloth fabric, and I did that with some Heat and Bond Light, and they're stuck together. And then I used some Wonder Under for this back, which will then adhere to that when the time comes. I've done it with both pieces. It just hides the prints of the fabric. And then of course we've got the threads. I'm just using 2 colour threads today. And that's a pale pink that I've got in the hoop and a darker pink. So without further ado, what we'll do is start by stitching the placement line for the fabric piece. Okay, so we've done that, and what we do now is I'm just going to remove this from the hoop and spray some temporary spray adhesive onto the cutaway. I never do it on the machine. And now we want to just put the wadding on. So what I do is fold it in half and where you've got your lines on the hoop, meet it there. Make sure you're going over the edges of the placement lines, and then lay it down. And then next thing we do is the tack down line. Okay, I was really quite careful with how much I use. This is quite expensive here in the UK, so I'm quite mean with how much I use. If you want to use sort of a much larger piece, like a 6" by 8" piece, so that it's easier to trim the edges, you can by all means. I did 5.5 by 7.5, so it's a bit tighter to cut, but we need to cut away the excess. Okay, so that bit's done, and I went ahead and put it back with forgetting that I need to spray some adhesive on. So again, not too much, but enough to help the fabric adhere. I use the Odif 505 adhesive, temporary spray adhesive, because it doesn't gum up the needles like some do. I bought one, it was really good price. I thought, oh wow, this is really cheap. It was about 2/3 of the price of the 505, and I used it, and oh my goodness, the needle kept sticking. It was horrible. It was a horrible mess. So I learnt the hard way that the cheap isn't always the best when it comes to our machines. So if you want to look after your machine, sometimes you do have to pay for the better quality products. So I've stuck that down, and because I've used temporary spray adhesive, I don't need to do another tack down line. If you want to, you can use masking tape to just make sure that stays still, but I know this isn't going to go anywhere. And what I want to do now is stitch the placement line for the next piece of fabric. And now that's stitched, I'm going to lay down this the end piece of applique fabric. What I will just remind you to do, if you haven't done, is take the backing off the heat and bond or Wonder Under, whatever you're using. I have actually in the past not done that, stitched it and thought, oops, I haven't taken the backing off. So do make sure you do that. And we lay that down. Again, you can use masking tape if you want to, just to get it to stay still, but I take a risk at sewing my fingers. Okay, I found that unavoidable to stitch the large jump stitch. I've tried to get rid of it, but I can't, so I apologise for that if you get the same thing. Now we want to just trim this edging here, the fabric. And although you sort of think, oh goodness, that's going to be difficult with the really tight curls, you can literally just do like a zigzag cut, and that will be enough. The satin stitch line that you will stitch in a while will cover this fabric, so you don't have to be too exact. So it really is as simple as you can see that I'm doing. I just want to make sure that I am quite close to the stitch line. Right, so it's really that quick and easy. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop over to the iron and iron this down now, because the next thing we're going to do is the heart stitching, and I don't want this to risk sort of jumping up like that and causing an issue. So I shall pop and iron this and come back momentarily. Okay, I've returned. You might notice a slightly brighter screen. That's because day has dawned. I've opened the blinds and it's a beautiful sunny day here in Buckinghamshire. I hope it's sunny wherever you are. So I've ironed this fabric down now, so it's nice and stuck down. And now I'm going to stitch the stipple background. So now the next thing we have to do after the stippling is to do the wavy line for the, do the stitching for the wavy line. So I'm just changing thread colour because I actually want this to be in a darker colour so it stands out. You can, of course, if you want to have it blend in, do it in the colour of the background fabric like I have done with the stippling. But I do like it to stand out. Okay, so that's stitched really nicely, and now we're going to stitch the lettering for Grandma. Again, I'm going to do this in the same colour. Okay, so that's finished, and now it's time to do the applique letter. So I'm keeping the thread as it is so I can see clearly what where I've got to place the fabric over. If it was the pale pink, it would be harder to tell. Okay, making sure that you've taken the backing off again of your adhesive. Place the fabric over the placement line, making sure you're covering the whole area. I will say, if you don't wish to put any adhesive backing onto the back of this fabric, it's not too important, because that's not going to really cause a problem if it's not stuck down to the base fabric. It's just something I do like to do. Now I'm going to trim around the lettering. So that's done, and now it's time to return to the hoop I'm not going to iron it at this stage, but return to the hoop to stitch the satin stitch surround. Okay, so that's that done. Stitched nicely, and now what we need to do is attach the back fabric to the top. Basically, you will be turning it inside out after this, so you need to turn your fabric over, lay it down, making sure you are going over all the lines, especially at this end, because you want to have a decent amount of fabric left over when you've finished. And then stitch. And there you go, it really is as simple as that. It's a 35-minute stitch out, lovely and quick and easy. And now what we need to do is remove this from the hoop. And where I've got the fleece, I have ironed it to the fabric, but it peels up nice and easily because we need to trim this excess away. Again, because when we turn it inside out, if we leave it, you're going to have a bulk there and it's going to stick up proud of everything else. So do make sure that before trimming or anything, if you've used the fusible fleece, just pull it away from the fabric so that you can trim that off. Although we'll be trimming the fabric, we will be leaving about 5 mils around the edging, so you do need to do this part. So you've gotten rid of all of that, and now I like to use my pinking shears. You don't have to. It just stops the edge from fraying. And we just go along, cutting about 5 mils from the line, stitch line. We also cut across the edges to reduce the bulk in the corners. Sorry, cut across the corners, not the edges. As for this edge, leave a good centimetre. Still cut the edges and then just go along to where the line is. Do not cut that, because when you turn it inside out, it's going to be easier to have that will be folded in, as I'm about to show you. So I've trimmed everywhere apart from that corner. Trimmed all the corners, and I do have arthritis in my fingers and it can be very hard to turn. I've tried to leave as large a gap as possible, but now I'm going to use my Hermostat or something they're called. They're surgical clamps and they're fantastic. Not very expensive. I do suggest if you haven't got them that you do get them, because what you can do is grab the fabric and then lock them in place, she says, and it helps to pull the fabric through, if I can get to grips with it. Just make sure that you don't tear the seams on the corners. Normally I bring it closer to me, which makes it easier for me to do, but I'm trying to do this on camera without getting myself on camera. I'm a bit camera shy. So there we have it, and because they're blunt and rounded, you can use them to push everything through as well and push into the corners, rather than using something like a knitting needle, which would go through and puncture a hole in your fabric. It's far better to use something rounded. If you've got a chopstick that's quite thin, or a wooden knitting needle that's got quite a blunt end, a chunkier one would be okay. Crochet hook, anything really. So I just push the corners out as much as I can. Here we are. And trying to flatten everything. And this is where I say, if you wanted to use a heat and bond light on the backing, you could do. I haven't used it on this one. I'll show you that I've ironed. So the fabric is loose, but it doesn't pose a problem. So in my eyes, it's not worth spending the money on using it. And then what I will do is I will press that down, and then you can either sew it, or I'll show you what I use. If I can lay my hand on it, because I used it yesterday, so I know it's on my table, buried under all the fabric that I've been using. What I use is steamer seam. Fantastic. There are other products out there, but I love steamer seam. It really does stick fast, and to be honest, I've used it for a couple of years, and I use it to seal any mug ruggers or anything that I do like this, and it doesn't come off undone with the washing. I wash and wash and wash and tumble dry, and it doesn't come apart. So what I do is I just measure the size I need, and oops, fiddly on the camera. And then I pop it inside on the thinner side, thinner fabrics, like the back side, so to speak. Put it towards the edge, turn it over, and then making sure the fabric's covering it, I just, that's it, iron there so it sticks to that. Then afterwards I take the paper backing off and then iron it again there, and it seals it down. So I'm just going to pop off and do that, and I shall come back and show you shortly. Okay, so it's finished. That's the end result. I'm very happy with that. And that's not for my grandma, bless her, she passed away before I was born. This is for me, because I'm a grandma, and as no one else makes things in my family, I have to make my own things. Isn't that sad? So I've ironed this down as well, so that's all stuck down now. The seam trying to find the end. It's all closed down tight. And that's my new mug rug design. In with the file, I'm including one size of the applique letter and 2 sizes of the fill font, because obviously you can see that Grandma has filled this. My own name had plenty of room, but if you had a longer name like Abigail, you're not going to fit it in with this font. So I've created a smaller font for you to do it. Plus, you can always use your own. You can use your own applique letters that you've bought, your own fonts that you've bought. You can do anything you want. I've just included it for those of you that perhaps haven't got any, new starting out and so on. And I just think it's nice to give it a little extra. It is actually a true type font that I've downloaded called the Hobo font. And that's what I did, created it in my software. So if you want to know what the font is, it's the Hobo font. And that's it. I hope you've enjoyed that tutorial. A little bit about the scissors I've used and the scissors I like. First of all, I used a rotary cutter to cut the fabrics out. I live and die by these with my dressmaking as well. I've used them for, I don't know how long, I suppose since they came out. I mean, I can't even think when they came out, but a long time. I like this one in particular because it's a nice rubber type feel grip, and nice and easy for me to use, especially with the arthritis. I get on better with this one. It's XSOR, well, whatever make that is. So it's XS''OR 45 mils. This is, oh, I'm going the wrong way. This is a lovely one to use. If you are looking for a specific one to buy. Also, you saw me using these pinking shears, that's what they're called, pinking shears, for the trimming. When you use pinking shears, and again I use in dressmaking, it helps stop the fabric fray like crazy. You'll still get a little bit of fraying, but not nearly as much, so I like them as well. My applique scissors, Ginger. Fantastic. I won't use any other type. I really will not use any other type. These were in the UK about £30. I believe they're cheaper in America. Not many places in the UK sell them. I found them on Amazon occasionally and Create and Craft TV occasionally. So have a look around, Google it, and you should find them. They're the 6-inch double curve scissors. So you've got the bend that goes over the hoop, which is lovely. So you can trim it in the hoop as you saw me doing, and then that's slightly curved. They're very pointed, super sharp. I've had these for 3 or 4 years, still very, very sharp. I totally recommend them. I should be paid by Ginger for endorsing them, shouldn't I? The other ones I've got, which my dear friend Carrie sent me, bless her, these were £55 in the UK. Whether they are now or not, I don't know, but beyond my reach. They're not that expensive elsewhere. I think it was just because the company knew they're hard to get over here, so we're taking advantage of that. So my friend, bless her, she sent them to me, which was very kind, and they're lovely. They're called the duckbill applique scissors because it's got the duckbill, although I think that's more like a stork, don't you? The stork that carries the baby, but there you go, that's me. Or is it a pelican? Pelican? I'm not sure. Anyway. I don't think duckbill really suits the name, but that's what they're called. These are great. If you are a bit mad at cutting and you tend to cut through fabric, these really help stop that happening. It keeps this blade above the fabric, then it just stops it happening. They're lovely to use. So depending on what I'm doing, depends on whether I use these or the double curve. You can use these in a hoop, that they're not double curve, they've only got the one curve. So again, it does depend on what you're using them for, but equally as good. Both have their uses on different occasions. Also, you've got your average little embroidery curved scissors. Again, they're handy for snipping your stitches, etc. And I have my wonderful Fiskars scissors. Fiskars are a fantastic brand of scissors. Again, they last. These are, I think, about £28 in the UK. These are brilliant. Super sharp. Again, 28-inch dressmaking scissors. So I use them sometimes to cut my fabrics, etc. I should also say that these are about between £3 and £5, so very cheap. And then the hemostats, I'm never sure how to pronounce it, but the surgical pliers, clamps, whatever you want to call them, they're fantastic. They lock and unlock, and as you saw, great for turning fabric and pushing the corners out. So that's what I used really, in case you wondered. And that's it. So have a go. Join my Facebook group, Machine Embroidery Addicts, and please do show us if you make them. Please show them. That would be fantastic, because not many times do I see them posted. Lots of people buy them, but not many people show them. A lot of people don't like showing their work for some reason, but I love to see all work. So do come along if you're not already a member and join me there. Happy stitching, and I'll see you again. Bye.